go ahead and work on the questions in Google Classroom. So here is what we did Tuesday. Yes, talking about vectors and vehicles for parasites. There was some examples if you just want to get that. There were 4 different slides. We had the transmission, how it was transmitted, and then the life cycle. And then what everyone was doing after that is you were reading through this, and then you were going to answer these questions. That's why everyone finished that day, and then we were going to go over that. So you know the questions on Google Classroom, you can pull out your case studies. Did anybody finish their case studies? The 4 paragraphs where you had to answer the questions and you were deciding on if it was. If you finish them, then you can just take a few minutes while everyone else finishes theirs, and then we'll go over the answers to that to see if you got them right. Your case studies done, guys. I'm gonna do one more. So first, go ahead and answer the question for Google Classroom. Second, work on finishing up your case studies, and then we'll go over those answers together. Does anybody need another copy that maybe lost your case studies? Find yours. Okay. No, it's supposed to be the one. But because I have to balance myself and some of the division work is remember, you get 4 different tests that they could be to kind of give you a little help? You need to list those again? Huh? So the 4 different parasites you can choose from are heartworm, roundworm, hard tick, and catworm. Those were your 4 that you could choose from on that parasite. So I'll write them over here for you.
Don't forget to scroll back so I don't lose my hands.
Heart, hard tick, and then what was the last catworm? There's your 4 for your case studies. These are the 4 different parasites. So if that helps you out. We'll talk about that. We're not working on that yet. Those are goats or sheep. We're going to talk about that. That's the Camacho method of searching for parasites that they use in goats and sheep. Yeah, that's their eye. You look at their eyelid. They have to pull it down and look at their eyelids. Like the eye. No, that's them pulling, just like you would pull your eye to look at the eyelids. So you got your stuff on. You guys can use the internet to look up any of the symptoms if that helps you any. If you're already done, I'll give you this, and you can read through the purpose and that terminology on there. I'll give you guys about 9:02 until about 9:25 to finish the case study. And then we'll go over it together. question, the question to consider. It's a Google question. Let's see what you know. Why do some parasites become resistant to anti-parasitic drugs? Worms. Why do you think? Also, you not have a chance to sign the card. Just hand it back office for like, put it on the sign that.
Stupid news with some batteries. So that's what we got.
Yeah, that's the, animal science, we talked about this conditioning. Behavior conditioning. So they got so used to hearing this crickle sound, I think that every time you hear that, they go crazy.
I know, I was gonna say, so their diet sounds the same as like, eating our feet. We could do this.
Everybody else find this? Brandon, see you one here. Huh? Oh, you said on the bottom, okay. Anybody still working on the case studies? Or is everybody done? We're just gonna go through the answers anyway, so if you just wanna read through them and just write down the answers, just to familiarize yourself with it. Yeah. Make sure you guys go answer the question. Alright. So the case studies. So case study 1, what was that one about? Anybody want to read it all?
A Labrador goes hunting in South Missouri.
About the 30.
Coughing. And several months. She has been tired or not wanting to play. And she has lost 8 pounds.
Okay. Our abdomen was distended. Okay.
She has been cleaning up her food recently.
Has been cleaning up her food. Another key thing to read here though, it says the owner had not brought Ginger in for a visit in more than a year. And had mentioned he'd not been keeping up with her monthly preventative medications because money had gotten tight. So she's probably not been getting worms. She's probably not been getting a lot of things that she probably needed. So, case study 1, what was the species of the host? The dog. Is there an intermediate host? Yes. Yeah. The mosquito is the intermediate host. Oh, yeah. Mosquito's an intermediate host. It doesn't mention a mosquito, but you have to think of they're in the woods. They're in southern Missouri. Even in February, though, southern Missouri, still get mosquitoes, it's warm now. Okay, what symptoms do they have?
Coughing, tired, slow eating, no meds for
So symptoms, doesn't want to play, is tired, shows weight loss, decreased appetite, and a distended abdomen. So where was it? Yep. The animal was hunting in a wooded area, how did the animal get the parasite and become sick? In the woods, okay? And also the owner reported he had stopped preventative medications. So most likely he had been giving her some heartworm and dewormer medications. So the parasite for this one actually was a heartworm. So heartworms, are they carried by a vector or a vehicle? A vector, yep. And what was the vector? The mosquito. I know the case study itself doesn't mention the mosquito, so that is a little bit confusing. Okay, if you can get it right. Okay, so case study 2. Snickers, the 6-week-old beagle.
Oh.
So Snickers was dropped off at an animal shelter, and it was on August 23rd, so keep an account the time of year. The veterinary tech, you're the veterinary tech. You're giving them, her and the siblings, a preliminary exam. The owner said the mother was an outside dog that was tied to a dog house, and the owner did not realize that the dog was pregnant. When the mother beagle had her puppies, the puppies stayed outside with her. The mother had gotten loose recently, was hit by a car and killed. The owner tried to take care of the puppies, but she found it overwhelming, trying to clean up after them and feed them while she worked 2 jobs. When the puppies came into the animal shelter, they were filthy and had a bloated appearance. The puppies also seem to have diarrhea. Since they've been at the shelter, the puppies have also not been able to keep down food. And as a technician, you've noticed that Snickers has vomited 3 times. So what species was the host?
Beagle.
The dog, yeah, beagle. What species? You would say the the dog. Beagle is the breed. Is there an intermediate host?
Yeah, it's small.
They say no. But in my opinion as well, you could say that the mom could have been an intermediate host. I think I'd say that could go either way. But what? Yeah. So what were the symptoms?
Diarrhea, vomiting, and the loss of appetite.
Hot belly too. Hot belly. You know, you guys know what it means when I say hot belly?
Yeah.
It's a big rounded belly. So where did it take place? Alabama. How did the animal get the parasite and become sick? Yeah. There could have been two ways. Puppies were kept outside in a doghouse. They could have ingested feces or infected soil, so they've just been licking around on the soil. There's probably feces on the soil. There's soil that's got. They're also covered in. Yeah, so they were filthy, so they've obviously been laying in it. And there's a good chance the mom probably had it too. So what parasite infected the animal? A roundworm. Is a roundworm carried by a vector or vehicle? So if you consider it's the mom dog, it would be a vector, but if you consider
The mud or soil.
the mud or soil, it would be a vehicle. So it could be one of the two ways. Cool. Alright. Case study 3. A local farmer in Nebraska calls you to come out and take a look at his herd of Black Angus. It's July, and he's just gone out to do a health check on some of his animals in the range area. This area is fenced but has large areas of shrubby brush and marshy land within the range. The farmer tells you that he has noticed that his cattle have lost some of their luster and they look thin. You notice that they are missing patches of hair that they seem to be rubbing off on posts and trees. The hair loss is mainly around the neck and ears and the tail. This spring, the farmer had a 15% reduction in his calf crop, meaning,
Less babies.
yeah, less babies. Because his cattle, he thinks the issues were related because his cattle are also looking unthrifty. What would that mean? They're looking unthrifty.
Healthy.
Yeah, they're looking kind of unhealthy. Maybe their coats they're not shiny and nice. They're all dull. Yes, I'll screw it up. People at the slaughterhouse where he ships cattle have also told him they will not be paying him as much for his cattle hides because of the scarring on the hides. So, what species is the host?
Cattle.
Okay. Is there an intermediate host?
Yes.
There could be, yep. Because what runs around out in cattle pastures besides cattle?
Flies.
Dogs, cats, rodents, rabbits, rats, mice, all of that stuff. So yes, it could have been a small herbivore or a carnivore, so you could think of a coyote, any wild animal. Could be an intermediate host. What symptoms did they have?
Loss of hair. Was it weight?
They weren't babies. They didn't really mention anything about the weight.
They said they were thin.
Yes.
Yeah, 150.
Okay. So you have cattle look thin, dull coat. They're rubbing on posts and trees. They have patches of hair missing on their neck and ears and around tails. Reduction in the calf crop by 15%. Predicted reduction in hide price because of scarring. So where did it take place? You have to make sure you consider where it took place because there may not be a certain parasite in that area. You can think it was something, but maybe that's not a parasite common to that area. How did they get the parasite and become sick?
Rolling in it? Yeah.
Yep, in the shrubby brush, in the marshy land. So that land's real marshy and shrubby, it's not the best place to keep cattle, probably.
It's so hard.
So think of that. Yeah, so the parasite that affected the animal, in this case, is a hard tick. Although in my mind, when they mention patches of hair missing on the necks and ears, to me, that almost sounds like a mite problem. So I can see it going either way. Obviously, as a veterinarian, you're gonna look at
That's
the
what
skin and you'll be able to tell.
That's what I thought at first, but then I read the next one and was like, wait,
So, I mean, in my mind, you could say hard tick, but you could also think some type of a mite. Because if you've ever had a dog that's had mites, they lose hair. Yeah, my dog had it. It was always around her head and her tail and her feet.
Whenever we lived in our old house, my dog had puppies, and all of them got mange, where they were like babies.
Yeah, and you know, mange is from a mite.
The only reason my dog had was scared is because there was biting and they choked it out.
Yeah, and sometimes it might just be a hot spot or an allergy or something like that.
As long as my dog's.
So, is a parasite carried by a vector or a vehicle?
Vector.
A vehicle.
They said it could be an intermediate dose.
So it's a vehicle because usually a tick they'll hang on to different things. They don't have to go internally to get to another animal.
But they died.
Eventually the body will push the tick out. Your body naturally will push them out.
If like a tick's head gets stuck on the push it out.
Eventually it could, yeah, but it's better if you move the head out. It's easier to move the head out.
With splinters, if you want to either your skin over or just push it.
Like a blister. That's why it looks like you have an infection. If you get a splinter, that's your body like attacking whatever that foreign object is to push it out of your body. Like for example, I had to have stitches once, and some of them were internal stitches, and my body rejected the stitches and actually pushed them out.
Wait, how did you see that?
You actually saw them coming out.
And then I was, like, it came out like the first couple of days.
All right, so case study for Mrs. Peabody frantically calls you on the phone saying that she needs an appointment for Spunky, her Maine Coon cat. Right away, she thinks Spunky is having an allergic reaction to something or has been bitten by a spider because there's a huge welt on her neck. Miss Peabody always says she's so concerned, Miss Peabody says she's always so concerned about the spiders in California. When she brings Spunky in for her examination, the cat looks healthy. Upon closer examination, you find a swollen area on Spunky's neck that Miss Peabody has described. You find a large cyst under the skin of the animal, and the area has a small hole in the middle. There is a small amount of discharge oozing from the hole.
Do you think that'd be a problem?
You clean the wound and surgically make the opening wider to drain it. When you do, you see a small larva inside. Miss Peabody is horrified when you extract the larva that's been inside of Spunky. You ask her if Spunky has gotten into anything unusual recently, and she tells you that she had gotten out of the house a few times in the past 2 months, and about a month ago, she brought home 2 baby rabbits and left them on the doorstep. I was almost as disgusted as I am today with that. So what species is the host?
Cat.
Cat. Breed Maine Coon. Was there an intermediate host involved?
Yes.
Oh.
Oh,
So what symptoms did the host have?
cyst.
Cyst. But what was on that cyst? No. discharged the small hole. And then they also had that larva that came out. So where did the case study take place?
California.
How did the animal get the parasite? The rabbits, yep. So what was the parasite?
Cat warble.
The cat warble. So remember on the cat warble, when we went over it, and Dylan, I know you weren't here, so. The cat warble, you remember where we said they could pick up those larvae?
Oh, and rabbits.
At the edges of the rabbit hole, because remember they come from a fly. It's a larva, it comes from a fly, it's like a bot fly almost. And they can pick it up on the outside of that rabbit burrow. And then when it gets scraped up, you know, if the cat was digging in there trying to get the baby rabbits, it probably got on its fur and then it burrowed into the skin. So would the parasite be carried by a vector or vehicle?
Vehicle.
Vehicle, yeah, because it was just on the soil, it wasn't in something else. The cat didn't ingest anything to get it, although you could say the rabbits. So what was the vector of the vehicle? I just told you that. Soil around the openings to the rodent and or ground birds. All right. You guys can hang on to that for your own reference. So go ahead and get the second packet that I gave you. And we're gonna start talking about parasite resistance. You can flip to, first and foremost, Google Classroom has a, did everybody answer that question on Google Classroom?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and do that really quick. So it would be the third one down. So why do some parasites become resistant to antiparasitic drugs? Why do they do that? You use them too much. Don't finish the full prescription. Okay. So it sounds like you guys are all pretty good. Right on. Okay, so parasite resistance. Parasites can develop resistance to antiparasitic drugs. There are many things a booster can do to prevent the resistance from developing. They can test for your resistance using a fecal egg count reduction test, which is also an PCRT. Good management techniques are important to prevent parasitic resistance, including the FAMACHA test in sheep and goats to determine if animals need to be dewormed. So the key point to this lesson is antiparasitic medications can create resistance as the parasite develops immunity. So the things that we're gonna do next week, actually, I will probably have some live goats here and we'll actually get to try to do the FAMACHA test on them. And then also we will do some fecal tests. So I'm ready to test food. Hey, if you work in a vet office, you're gonna have to do it simple. All right. So go ahead and flip to page 4. The PowerPoint notes, just make sure you fill that out and follow along as we're going. So page 4. Animal, like I just said earlier, animals are treated with anti-parasitic drugs to control parasite infections and infestations. Anti-parasitic resistance is the ability of parasites to survive a treatment of an anti-parasitic drug to which they have been susceptible in the past.
The ability is genetic and can be a problem when a large percentage of parasites affecting the animal carry the resistant gene. These parasites, now genetically resistant, can survive a treatment that was previously effective. So just like how we have these resistant bacteria and resistant viruses, and we have to keep coming up with new antibiotics and new antiviral drugs, it's the same thing with parasites. They can become resistant to wormers and things like that. Okay. So, this slide, you see those two goats there. So antiparasitic resistance is variable throughout different areas of the United States and the world. Equine and livestock species seem to be the most susceptible to parasites that are resistant. So your larger animals, your horses, sheep, goats, small ruminants, not really cattle, they're a little less susceptible to it. Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and South America have had problems with antiparasitic resistance in the past. That's why they're listed up there. So Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, South America, and in some parts of the United States have had some antiparasitic resistance. So when an animal is treated with antiparasitic drugs, a certain percentage of the parasites will survive the treatment. No matter what you do, there's still going to be some that survive because they're genetically resistant to the drug. Those parasites then breed with each other and then pass on those resistant genes to the offspring. So if there are not a lot of susceptible parasites left, then the population will become more resistant and no longer respond to the antiparasitic drug. So the more resistant they are, the more they're going to reproduce and produce more resistant parasites. Alright, so refugia, those are parasites that are not selected for treatment during a particular cycle. So when animals are treated for parasites, there's always a certain percentage of that population of parasites that are not affected. This could be parasites that are living in or on untreated animals, eggs, and larvae in the environment, or life stages of the parasite that are unaffected by the treatment drug. These parasites are called refugia, or parasites that are not selected for treatment. They have not developed resistance because they were not exposed to the antiparasitic drug. So the refugia, they live on untreated animals. It's where certain life stages are not affected by the drug. That's why it's important to know what stage they are in that life cycle, because different antiparasitic drugs treat different life cycles. So if you're treating for the adult and not the eggs and larvae, then the adult's going to die, but not the eggs and larvae, and you're still going to have a problem. So this picture shows you the importance of preserving refugia. Why should we preserve those refugia? So on the top left there, that shows the parasite population within the herd. So you have 3 out of 12 there. The one on the right, same thing. So the one on the left, they're treating the entire herd, so there's no refugia preserved. On the right, they're only treating 50% of the herd, so some refugia is preserved. So the one on the left, no refugia. The one on the right, they will have refugia. So those red dots represent the resistant parasite. It's going to be resistant to that drug. And the left one, that one's gonna not have any of them that are susceptible left. Okay. So on the left, all susceptible parasites die, only resistant parasites remain to breed and pass on resistance genes to their offspring. On the right, some susceptible parasites remain to dilute the resistant parasites, slowing the development of a fully resistant parasite population. So between those two, which one do you think is going to be the better situation when you're talking about anti-parasitic animals, or anti-parasitic resistance parasites? Which one's going to prevent that resistance better? Yes, the one on the right. Why is that going to be better? Because those ones that are not resistant are still there, and it's going to dilute that population. So it'll keep some of them, some of those resistant parasites from reproducing properly. Okay. The factors that increase resistance. So there are many things that increase anti-parasitic resistance. There's your list. The genetics of the parasite, how it lives, so what's that environment that they live in. Its pathogenicity can increase resistance. So also the immune status of the host. Is that host healthy, not healthy? Are they going to be able to fight those parasites off better and keep them from reproducing? If they're unhealthy, they're not going to.
There's also blank space next to it. Whatever. I think it's one of the.
You can't put increased resistance.
Just leave it blank. Write it down. So the immune status of the host, the frequency of treatment. What do you think frequency of treatment? How often you treat them. In most cases, animals need to be on a cycle. So whether it be, when I had market lambs and I showed sheep, we would worm our sheep. I want to say it was every month, I think, once a month we would worm them because sheep are very susceptible to parasites, unfortunately, because they eat so close to the ground. Animal management factors can also have an effect, so if you're not managing your animals right, you can possibly be producing more resistant ones, or not. So this resistance can be tested in livestock using a fecal egg count reduction test, which is the FECRT, and that's the one that's most effective in sheep and goats. So the fecal egg count reduction test, a really long word to say. It's used to test for parasite resistance. It's most effective in sheep and goats. Fecal samples are tested before and after treatment to determine the percent reduction in egg numbers. Samples that are not reduced by 90% are generally considered to have some parasitic resistance.
shedding.
Sorry. What is egg shedding? You'll hear this term. That means releasing parasite eggs.
Yeah, I was down here.
Okay, there you go. Everybody got it down now? Okay. Egg shedding, so that is releasing parasite eggs. Animals can be classified into one of three groups based on the egg count level in a fecal sample. So they have higher level, lower level, or mid-green level. They're gonna fall into one of those categories. So a heavy shedder would mean 20% of the population is shedding. A moderate shedder is 10 to 15% of the population, and low shedders are 65 to 70% of the population. So that's the 80-20 rule. 80% of parasite eggs are shed by 20% of the animals in the flock or herd. So good management practices. If a producer is using good management practices, they're going to use clinical signs and diagnostic tests to determine when to treat animals, what parasites to treat for, and which animals to treat. There are kits that they can actually go online or go to a veterinarian and buy these kits. It's really easy for producers and people to do a fecal test on your own animal. So what a producer could do is identify and cull. So does anybody here know what culling means? Culling, get rid of or kill. So you usually have what they call a keep cull, especially in judging. They'll have a keep cull pen, meaning you're going to keep these ones for breeding and good management of your herd, or you're going to cull them, which means get rid of them. So they're going to identify and get rid of animals that are the highest fecal egg shedders. So if these animals are shedding a lot of parasite eggs, they're probably gonna get rid of them. And then they're gonna preserve refugia within the herd. And then any new livestock, it's a very common practice. If you get new livestock or even a new animal in general, to put them with your good healthy animals as soon as you get them is not the best idea. It's always better to quarantine them for a certain period of time before you introduce them to your current animals, because especially pet stores sometimes can be known to have animals that are sick. So if you have an animal that's sick or has a parasite problem that you bought and you put them in immediately with your current animals, then you're gonna give your animals whatever they have. It's always good to quarantine new animals, just in case. Save some money in the end. Good. Alright, so another management practice, such as for large animals and livestock, is to rotate pastures between livestock species and horses. Because sometimes horses and other livestock species may or may not be susceptible to certain parasites. So if you rotate them, and there's parasites in the ground or in the grass, well, they don't have that animal to pick up and help them reproduce anymore, then that parasite's gonna die off. Reduce stocking density. Keep pasture grass tall. So having taller pasture grass means those animals aren't gonna be eating so close to the ground. So if they're eating really close to the ground and there are parasites on the ground or in the soil, then they're gonna pick them up a little easier. So drag or harrow pastures right up manure. Do you know what that means? Dragging and harrowing. Anybody? So we used to do this in our own pastures with our horses because of the poop. So what you do, and we had a small farm, so we would have a tractor, and it was like, it's usually just like this net looking thing, and it was chains, and you would drag it behind a tractor, and it would drag across the ground, and it would, what it would do is it would break up and spread out that manure. Because if you have, a horse herd is big, and it takes a little while for it to lose all of its moisture. So if you drag that out, it's gonna break it up, and it's gonna lose the moisture, and if there is a parasite in there, it's gonna kill them a lot quicker, because they're gonna dry up, they're not gonna make it. Does that make sense? Okay, the FAMACHA test. That's the picture with the eyeball. It's used with sheep and goats. It determines if an animal is heavily infested with a common parasite. It's called the barber pole worm. Producers compare the color of the animal's inner lower eyelid to the FAMACHA chart that determines the level of anemia caused by the worm infestation. Only certified producers can purchase FAMACHA cards to do this test. So that the producer has to be certified in it. So we will pause there. And I posted this same thing in color on Google Classroom, so you can actually see it in color, because obviously I printed it black and white, so you're not really going to be able to tell. But what I want you to do is see if you can do the FAMACHA test. You're going to look at those color pictures. This is the exact same thing. And just write down the score. So there's a scorecard on there. It'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'll throw it up on here in just a second. color version of this. As you can see, the first one is a 1, so they want that pinkish color. It's optimal. They probably don't need a warmer at the time. The second one is acceptable. So what you're looking at is this part of the eyelid right here on the bottom. So the more red, pink it is, the better. So the middle one, it's a lighter pink, so it's kind of borderline. It's iffy. You could or you couldn't. If you want to wait a little bit longer, you could. If you feel like you should, then you can. Number 4, they're at a pretty dangerous level. It's a very, very, very light pink right here. So that means you need to go ahead and give them a dose. And down here, if it's just completely white like that, it's pretty fatal. So here's your color. This is all on Google Classroom for you, so you can look at it on your own device. It's easy to see. I just want you guys to go on there and score these animals. Do what you think. Let's see if you can get them correct. point out to make sure you guys are looking at the right place here on these. So it's this sliver, this bottom part right here. Don't look at this part at the top. Look at this right here. That's what you're looking at. Okay. Everybody done? Everybody still working on it? Okay. Let's see. Okay, so number one, what do you think, what are you scoring it at, Brandon?
3 or 2.
You're giving it a 2?
Those two.
Yeah, I'd say 2 or 3. Okay. Number 2, which one are you gonna score that one at? 2?
It's a 1.
That's not even close to it. Of course, up there it looks darker than what we live on the computer. So I can see where you guys are thinking it's a 1. This is actually saying it's a 4. I would say this is a 3 or a 4. So I would say you might want to go ahead and dose this one, but it's not super necessary yet. This one, huh? What's the number you're gonna give this one? Look at that bottom eyelid, not the actual eye part, you're gonna look at this right here. How light that is? Don't look at that, that's just the third eyelid. This is what you're looking at right here. What is that one gonna be? A 5, yeah, I would give that one a 5. That's not a very healthy looking goat. Okay, so number 4, that one's pretty rough looking too, isn't it? So look at this right here. Give that a 4 or a 5. Yeah, I'd say we probably need to go ahead and go to that one with some anti-parasitic.
1.
If it was. Yeah, I think that's probably a 2. Let me show you a good example of a 1, okay? I'll show you guys this. See how dark red that eyelid is? That's a 1. Well, I know, and that's why I'm gonna bring some real pictures for you guys to see. Pictures you can look at all day, and actually seeing it in real life is gonna be better. Do you see how dark red that is though? How dark and pink that is? That's what's gonna be a 1. That is your, and I'm gonna show you one more quick little. There's also something called the 5-point check along with the FAMACHA score. Okay. And this is something we'll go over too. We have the FAMACHA score, that's that ocular membrane. The more pale, the more anemic and wormy. So the type of worm that it was talking about that's common in goats and sheep, what they do is they suck so much blood out of the animal, they become anemic, and that's why that color is so light. Okay, the step is to identify the presence of the barber pole worm or a liver fluke. The liver fluke can do this as well. You guys remember what the liver fluke looks like?
Wait, can you go back?
Huh?
Can you go back?
This isn't on your notes. So this is an actual liver fluke that came from, fairly certain this one came from a sheep. So this little dude is what sucks the life out of animals. If anybody wants to look at it, you can pass it around before. But that'll cause anemia and another problem. Huh?
That was flat.
There's your FAMACHA scoring.
But it's flat, that was so flat. It's flat.
So there's your categories broke down a little bit. So that in a category 1, it's gonna be red. You want it to be as red as possible. Category 2 is gonna be kind of a reddish pink. Number 3 is gonna be a pink. 4 will be a pink, kind of a real pale pink, pinkish white. And number 5 is white. So when it's talking about packed cell volume, that means that they're looking at the blood cells and a volume is a test that they can do. Body condition score. So there's a body condition score. It's utilized to determine whether an animal is too fat, too thin, or in normal range. An animal with a parasite infestation will lose body condition if the infestation is severe. So this is another way to test and check. It's a 5-point check. Here's a good example. So you see how the animal's emaciated in this one right here? There's no fat cover. This is a sheep, if we were looking at sheep. You're gonna see that spine that's real prominent. The figures easily pass under here. And then number 2, they're just thin. They still have a little bit of a fat cover, but they still have a prominent spine. Muscles are medium depth. Figures can go under with pressure. Here's an average condition right here. Moderate fat cover, the spine is rounded and smooth. They have pretty full muscles. And the fingers need hard pressure to find pins. Okay, so you're looking for their pin. like a really fat cow or horse or any animal that's been kind of fat, instead of actually being able to see their spine or anything, there's like an indentation where their spine would be. They're a little too fat in that case. And then this one is obese. They get a big old fat pimple over their spine. So there's your body. So the tail is it's called the dag sport. A dag is a dry feces clump that is dangling on the end of sheep wool. Okay. This step analyzes the amount of fecal soiling or diarrhea that the animal has. They poop little pellets, like a rabbit almost. They have like a pellet that they poop. So if they've got a lot of poop in presence of diarrhea, it could determine the presence of both the brown stomach worm, the hairworm, threadworm, nozzleworm, and coccidia. Those are all things that cause that diarrhea. So there's your examples there. This is a clean one. This is score 2, score 3. Consider treatment in the middle. This one, you better go ahead and treat them. If you see this, you don't treat them, they're probably gonna die. And then the jaw, this is called a bottle jaw. When the lower jaw of a sheep or a goat swells because of accumulation of fluid as a result of the anemia. This also measures the presence of the barber pole worm and liver fluke. So if you see a goat or sheep, they have that big swollen jaw, there's a good chance they have that barber pole worm or liver fluke, and they need some treatment pretty quick. And then also nasal discharge. If they have a lot of nasal discharge, it could be the presence of nasal bots in sheep. If that bot fly, they'll actually lay eggs and stuff in the nasal cavities of sheep. And then there's a goat coat condition as well. So they usually don't harbor nasal bots. But if their coat is lustrous and it's shiny and it's nice, then obviously they're probably a lot healthier. If they're not, then they're going to be real dull. If you've ever seen a wormy horse, so a wormy horse would be, say, in the summertime, horses shed off that thick winter coat, and they have this real pretty, smooth, shiny coat. Well, if a horse is wormy, they're going to have like these random patches of long hair everywhere. They're not going to shed their coat. Their coat's not going to be very shiny. It could be an indication of parasites or some other issue. That is all I have for you guys today. So next week, I'm going to bring some poop. We're going to get to do some fecal tests. All over on your face. It's like, oh my God. And then I'll also have goats too for us to do some homogenous.
What day is that specifically?
Huh?
What day is that specifically?
Probably Wednesday.
Okay, I will be there.
What?
Okay, I will be there.
You won't be here for the goats?
No, or
She'll be, sick.
Yes, Robert Clark. This is vet science.
I missed a day and called it sick.
Okay, I'm ready.